Welcome to the Parenting Power Podcast, supporting parents with the real-life tools they need to raise the confident, interdependent people the world needs. Gail Bell and Julie Friedman-Smith interview experts who share their knowledge to assist parents in creating a home environment where kids can thrive.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Beaner's Fun Cuts for Kids hair salons. Parenting is hard, haircuts shouldn't be. Visit beanersfuncuts.com for a location near you.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Real Life Parenting Podcast. This is Julie Friedman-Smith.
And I'm Gail Bell.
Our guest today is Stephanie Pollock. Stephanie is a leadership coach and speaker. She works with women to help them craft meaningful work that aligns with their values and uses their top strengths. Along the way, Stephanie helps them set strong boundaries and focus on what really matters versus all the busy work they're likely doing. Stephanie hosts a podcast called Rise Without Compromise, Leadership Insights for Women in Business, which was recognized by Entrepreneur Magazine as one of 24 exceptional women-hosted podcasts for entrepreneurs in 2017. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here with y'all. Stephanie, both Julie and I listen to your podcast, Why I Love Getting Up at 4:30 a.m. every day. And we're hoping you can share some points you make in the podcast. First, talk to us about your why and why that's important.
Sure. First, I want to put a caveat on the conversation to say, when I talk about getting up at 4:30, it is not a directive. There are so many articles out there that speak to successful people get up early and all of that. This is never what this has been about for me, which speaks to your question, Gail, about my why. And my why was simply that at the period of time that I started doing this, which has been about 11 months now, I was feeling a lot of stress and anxiety, and that I didn't have a full sense of control over my own well-being and my own thoughts. I was a bit scattered. I was frustrated. I was feeling stressed out, and I knew I needed to do something differently. But in the scope of the day, with 2 young kids and a business and a husband and all the things we do, I just was not finding any window of time to be able to connect with myself and kind of get grounded again. And when I decided that it really was time to do something about it, I looked and said, okay, well, it's going to be mornings or it's not going to happen. And I was already waking up at that 4:30 a.m. time anyway, lying in bed, worrying about things. And I had nothing big to worry about, but I just, when that happens to us at periods in our life. And so I thought one day, I'm just going to get up. And so I got up and I started doing some things. And then I got up the next day and I got up the day after that. And then now it's been 11 months and I get up most mornings, not weekends, but most weekday mornings between 4:15 and 4:30. And that time really has been an act of what I call at the time, radical self-care. And now it's moved into just self-care, but at the time it was a radical act of self-care. And so that was my why for it.
Wow. I love that you're saying this may not work for everybody and this is not something that you're directing people to do, just a solution to your own situation.
Yeah, everybody has to find their own path to this, and it can look vastly different for everybody. It's just more about recognizing when things feel out of alignment, and that's really what it came down to. I felt stressed out, and I felt out of alignment, and I knew I needed to do something differently.
That's great awareness, and way to go for acting on it, too, because I think a lot of us have that awareness that it's happening, but aren't quite sure where to start to make the change. We would love it if you can share your thoughts around what you call success conditions.
Sure. And this plays in really well with the morning routine. For me, success conditions are those things that we do or set up or habits or mindsets that we get intentional about to help create the conditions for the results we want to achieve. So for example, with my 4:30 a.m. piece, one of the success conditions for me, as silly as it may sound, it is making sure that I have coffee ground in the coffee maker with water ready to just hit that button at 4:30 a.m. If I had to grind the coffee, potentially waking up my family, if I had to clean out the coffee maker from the night before, all of those things, as insignificant as that may sound, as silly as it may sound, it may get in the way of me doing it because I would say, well, if I'm going to get up at 4:30, I really need the coffee, but the coffee's not ready and that's too much work, so I'll get up tomorrow. And so for me, success conditions are those things that we can put in place ahead of time to make sure that we can reach the results that we want. So if you want to start going to the gym, this is a really common one, obviously, so we can all resonate with this. If you want to start going to the gym first thing in the morning, having your workout clothes ready to go, having your gym membership purchased, you don't have to go do that first day, having your water bottle in the fridge, all of those things set us up for success. And where I find with my clients, where things go astray is they want to build something. They want to develop a habit, whether it's a habit of showing up, whether it's a habit of having customer conversations, whether it's a habit of getting up early, whether it's a habit of building some public speaking or whatever it is, or podcasting, but they don't have the things in place ahead of time to make that reality almost like there's no way it's not going to happen. They put too many potential blocks by not addressing some of those things. So success conditions ultimately are about putting some things in place to make our results inevitable.
Yes, and that makes so much sense for families as well. And as a parent, you're modeling that for your children, and they're definitely seeing it. I know when Julie and I coach families, it's often about you can't control your children, nor do you want to. Well, maybe sometimes you do, but you can. But you can control the environment that they're living in, and it's actually your responsibility as a parent. And that totally is exactly parallel to what you're saying. There's things we can control, so to speak, to set us up for success. And we use that line at Parenting Power all the time. We say, set yourself up for success. Get the backpacks packed for the school the night before. So it totally aligns with your success conditions. Okay, we love this one. Going easy on yourself and making it joyful. Can you expand on that for us?
Sure. As a type A, ambitious, recovering perfectionist over here, I sometimes forget to find the fun in things and to find ways to make it easy and to make it fun in the process, because my natural state is head down, get it done, action-oriented, make it happen, all of those things. And that can work for a while, and there are elements of that support us, of course. I am never late. I can count on one hand the times I'm late. I do not enjoy being late, which also means my kids aren't late. We just don't do late in our house because that is a really keen value of mine. But sometimes the drive to make sure we're not late can not be super fun because I start getting anxious, or I start saying to my daughter, come on, hurry up, we got to go, even though I have built in plenty of buffer time to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's when I have to step back and say to myself, okay, how can we bring some joy back into this? And mornings with kids are a perfect example of that as well. How can we bring some fun back into this? How can we make this be easy? One of my favorite questions for myself and for my clients, for my friends, whenever we are feeling stuck around things, is just to ask, how can this be easier? How can this be easier? How can we create ease in this? And often when we're sitting with that question, we can realize like, wow, I have way overcomplicated this. I've made this much harder than it needs to be. And how can I bring a little lightness, a little levity, some ease, and even some joy back into the mix? And when you're operating from that perspective and that vantage point, then things open up and it just starts to not be such a big deal anymore. And you can find windows of connection with your kids. That's something that I've been working really hard at in the mornings, is that, the morning routine isn't just an assembly line of do this, do this, do this, that we can actually have points of connection in that time as well. If I set it up that way and I hold that intention of it being easy and bringing some joy back to it.
Wow. I just wrote in big block letters on my journal here, how can this be easier? Because I think there are so many times in the day that's a question that we could ask ourselves. Complicated doesn't necessarily mean best.
Rarely does it mean best. Complicated generally does not mean best.
Right, but it seems like, well, if I build a number of busy steps into this, I can sound like I'm really important, as opposed to, well, does that even need to happen? Or how can we just get this done and keep it simple? And I love that question. I'm going to definitely use that for sure.
That's a good one. It's almost like a mantra we can remind ourselves. I know, Steph, I too do not enjoy being late at all. So my mantra for that is there's always enough time.
Yes, yes.
And I've been saying that since my kids are little, just as much for me as for them. But it's amazing how it can just take a situation of hurry, hurry, hurry to, there's always enough time. And if you've used your success conditions and set yourself up for success, there actually is always enough time. And if that time's connection, that's a double bonus.
Well, that is such a good point, because they do play together so well, because I have built these success conditions in the morning. So back to the 4:30 piece, I get up that time for a number of reasons, which I already spoke to. But part of it is so that when I wake my kids up at 7:15 every morning, I am ready to go. I do not have that sense of hurry up anymore because I have grounded myself in myself and kind of got myself back to a good place. When I wake my kids up at 7:15, I don't wake them up at 7:30, even though they love to sleep till then. I wake them up at 7:15 because that gives us enough time. Pragmatically speaking, it gives us enough time so that really there is more than enough time because I've set it up ahead of time. We've made lunches the night before. We've done backpacks. I build all those success conditions in so that we can have enough time. And then it's the mindset switch to just stepping into, as you said, that mantra of there's more than enough time. And when you come from that place, then suddenly everything gets a little bit lighter and a little bit easier. And all of that frantic, hurried energy just starts to dissipate. Okay, we're good. We're okay. We can keep going. We can connect. We can have fun in this.
Mm-hmm. I wonder whether there are some of our listeners listening thinking, oh, yeah, that's because you're a type A person. You can do all of that, and there's no way I could get all that done. And I think what I'm taking away from this is everybody needs to choose for themselves what their intention is. But even if you've made a shift by one thing, one success condition that you created for yourself, or one new intention, or one way that something could be easier, we don't have to do 50. We can just start with one, and that in itself would be a beautiful change.
That's a really important point because I know, being the type A person I am, I can be prone to all or none thinking. It's like I got to do all the things or none of the things, right? And that has generally not been super helpful for me. So the 4:30 a.m. thing, that happened. And to be clear, I had tried to do that at many other points in my adult life. So this is not like I just decided and I was super successful from the get-go. That came from a deep place of need at the time, but I tried it other times and hadn't been successful for a myriad of reasons. But your point about being intentional about it is really key. We just need to get super intentional about what we want to create. And also, I believe in scaffolding, right? Like we layer in things bit by bit. So my 4:30 a.m., there is not an element of that right now, maybe a tiny bit as I've been coming on a year that's been about productivity. I just never made it about that, because if I made it about getting up at 4:30 and being super productive and doing all this self-connection work and going to the gym and working out, I was just setting myself up for failure. So I just made it about grounding and reflection. And then once I got a foothold in that, then I started to say, oh, okay, maybe there's space here. This feels like something that is part of who I am. I can keep showing up for this. Now I can add in another piece. So for those of the listeners that are like, yeah, I can't do all that, you don't have to. Just start with one small piece and then build on that and then build on that. And then that's how it happens. It's one small step at a time. Generally, it's not one big leap all at once.
Stephanie, our podcast is called the Real Life Parenting Podcast, and we often ask our guests to share with us one real life parenting tool that works in the family. Now, you've already shared a few, but do you have any others that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually had the pleasure yesterday of listening to President Barack Obama come and speak here in Calgary. And he was asked about what he and Michelle have done to raise such thoughtful, kind, smart girls. And to his credit, he gave Michelle all the credit for it. But he also spoke about one of the most important elements being around creating a routine, like something as basic as routine. And I am quite confident you ladies talk about that in your work at Parenting Power. And it's a big thing. I mean, this speaks to what we've already been talking about the 4:30. That's my morning routine. But as much as I'm talking about this, I can really resist routine. I like a little bit of spontaneity, and I like routine for a bit, and then I kind of rebel against it. And I recognize with my kids how much better they do if they know what's expected and how the day goes. So again, not to beat a dead horse here, but with our morning routines, we have this set process between 7:15 and 8:15, right down to the minute. So when my husband's off on a Friday, he'll say, what time do we get dressed? And the kids say 7:50. We're down. We know the routine, but it just makes things so much easier for us than having every morning look a little bit differently. So even though I resist it sometimes, and even though sometimes it feels like more work and more effort, I know that my kids thrive and show up better and feel better, and their mental health is better when we have some structures around how we negotiate everything from morning routine to bedtime routine to homework. They're still pretty young, so we're not doing a lot of that yet. But screen time, all of those things. When I bake that in, they do better and we do better.
Stephanie, this conversation has given us all a lot to think about. If listeners want to find out more information from you, where's the best place for them to follow you?
Well, they can come to my website at stephaniepollock.com, or I'm pretty active over on Instagram as well, and they can find me at Stephanie Pollock Inc. over there.
I'm just inspired. I don't know that I'm getting up at 4:30 tomorrow morning, but just as I was when I listened to your podcast, I was really inspired by the thoughtfulness and intention you had set around what you personally needed for your success. And having heard you speak today, it's given me a renewed little oomph to continue to find those things for myself. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today, Stephanie. It's been really helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Parenting, it's a long and sometimes tricky journey, and having both of you do the work that you do makes it that much easier. And I know a number of my friends have worked with you both and speak nothing but the highest of praises. So thank you back for the work that you do, adding a little more ease into parenting.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
To learn more about Parenting Power, check out our website, parentingpower.ca, visit our Facebook page, or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Parenting Power.